Phil, I am overwhelmed by the amount of support people are showing for Premiere. It's really it's a real testament to the community that we've created on the podcast to begin with, but also a bit of a testament to how hungry people are to play some of the cards they haven't been able to play for a long time from the legacy metagame. That they're already interested in trying out these decks, and we've got a little bit of a scene going on. We've got the Discord for Premiere linked below. We'll put that somewhere as well. Phil, I'm going to go over these decks with you, and here's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to start every deck. So every deck that's been posted on Discord so far is going to get a quick 2 or 3 minute like highlight, right? But I'm going to start also. Get your phones ready if you're watching this on your TV, people, or on your computer. If one of these decks feels interesting to you, I'm going to make sure that I put the QR code up right as we begin talking about it, so you'll be able to go to that deck and find it and build it.
Yeah, so, and then all of these are also, these are all that are already listed in the Discord. These are all brews that people have come up with the space. I think that I knew that there would be a hunger for Premiere because we were hungry for something like it, and we are part of the community and the audience that it's like anytime we've ever thought about something, Zach and I are a failsafe. If we're ever like, should we talk about that? It's like, we think it's interesting and cool. So that means that everybody else probably to some degree thinks it's interesting and cool. So let's give it a go.
It'll be fun.
Yeah. And so I think this is just more so there's been a lot more energy behind it but I'm so happy to see that because I was like, I keep saying we just need the community will to make it happen. And it is there.
There's a will.
It is highlighted to me more significantly how much WotC has dropped the ball with Legacy because of the energy that is behind Premiere.
That is unfortunate.
Which is unfortunate. But at the same time, I also think as the game continues to progress in the direction that it's going, things like Premiere, pre-modern sort of was just ahead of the curve, I feel like a lot of it. But in the same way that that has been so successful, I feel like Premiere is just following, standing on the shoulders of those giants. And then I feel like there's just going to be a ton of other future formats that are going to be similar. That essentially, it's what are the ways that we can sort of remove WotC from the equation?
Yeah.
This still lets cards into the format. This isn't a locked format or anything. But I think that I didn't think about how much of a boon that would be. It's what if we just removed the bottleneck that is WotC listening to us?
If the company's being a bad steward, and I would venture to say they're being a bad steward of Legacy, possibly of other formats as well, but we'll stick to Legacy here, then the onus is on us as a community to remove them from that equation and attempt to try and see if we can create a community of our own that doesn't have to deal with that.
And you want to know something else that I was thinking about? I watched the Igniting the Spark documentary.
Yeah.
Recently, and it's also something that all of the artists that have come on that you've been interviewing have talked about. Check out all the links to all the artist interviews that Zach has done. They're really awesome. But in that documentary, Richard Garfield is part of the suite of interviews that they do. And they Richard Garfield in a bunch of different interviews, not just in that documentary, has said over and over how he's always been so excited when he sees players taking the game and making it their own in some capacity to what they like. Essentially using the rules engines to make something that they all enjoy. And
because he's a game designer. He's a game
designer, so he loves that his game evolved to where other people are just taking the tools that he made and applying it to this new thing. And if we think about where WotC ended up going by supporting Commander as hard as they have, as to it being just the front runner format, that wasn't their design. That was Sheldon Menery and Judges, making a different game that then exploded in popularity. And so then WotC started designing for it. Now it's different than in pre-modern. Pre-modern is locked, right? No new cards enter the format. So it's pre-modern could become the most popular thing in the world. And the best thing that WotC could do is reprint things in, with different art styles or whatever. But with something like Premiere, where new cards do enter the fray, it's if something like Premiere became super, 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 super popular, they could WotC would go, oh, this is a super popular thing that people have endeavored into, and we don't have to change our behavior at all. We just can support it because it's all the cards that we're designing anyway. They're going into it the same way that they're going into Pioneer and Modern. So it's sort of I was really high on Premiere before, and then thinking about it a little bit further beyond the scope that we've talked about it in that regard has made me all the more hot for it and how much energy it's gotten behind it. So anyway, let's talk about these decks.
Yeah, let's talk about these decks. Let's talk about these decks. I've been looking to talk about these decks all day.
Zach's been wanting to talk about decks.
This episode of Eternal Durdles is sponsored by Cardmill, the first automated scanner and sorter built specifically for trading card game players. With its intentionally compact design, Cardmill uses AI-powered recognition to identify each card and sync inventory with real-time pricing, batching up to 300 cards at a time by name, set, color, or type. Collection data is securely stored in the Cardmill network, giving players full access to their cards through an easy-to-use web portal. Cardmill supports Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Flesh and Blood, Disney Lorcana, Star Wars Unlimited, and many more to come. Created by software engineer and longtime Magic the Gathering player Jonathan Dumanis, Cardmill launches on July 22nd on Kickstarter with early bird pricing starting at $350. Backers receive lifetime access to all software updates and new features. Go to cardmill.com to learn more and reserve your path to the future of card sorting. All right, we're going to share the whole screen here, so I might as well make this as big as possible, right? Here we go. All right, so the first deck we're looking at is this Grixis Control deck. There's the QR code here, and you're looking at a classic Grixis Control like build that you might have seen in like 2019. Here you got Narset. Kato is new, but the format allows new cards.
And let it be known that even though we're talking about this, cool new format, Zac is still going to pronounce cards how he's going to pronounce cards, and you all have to still accept that.
Yeah. What do we got? Snapcaster Mage is back. That's great. Bone Crusher Giant. There he is. Molten Collapse. This is what I would expect. You look, Colgan's Command. He's back in Pog form.
Yeah. No more will K Command refer to the piece of shit that currently exists.
Yeah, it's true. Sideboard. I think these all look like classic sideboard cards that you would see in Legacy and had seen back in the day. Look at that. Hymn to Torak is back. Oh my gosh.
Hymn to Torak. Wow. Like I don't know. It's like it's like a weird nostalgia hit while still being fresh, because like there's still like the broken busted stuff in here, like a Kaito, but like seeing people like tech out something that would Bone Crusher Giant isn't even remotely close to something that you would ever see in today's Legacy. And like, to see it back here because it's a removal spell that goes on an adventure as like a, highly static creature, and then you have K Command and, the suite of, picking and choosing your removal spells, like really, really cool.
Thanks to BMC Grail for posting that one. Next one up is from Dula. You got Yorian Enchantress. So Yorion is a card that can be in deck still.
And let it be known, Zac is still going to pronounce cards how he's going to pronounce cards, and y'all have to just accept that.
What is it? Yorion,
bro. Yorian.
This is an Enchantress deck. You've got an Oro. You've got, of course, your Growthy Enchantress. You've got your Nylea's Presence. Do we have the Enchantress Presence? No Enchantress Presence in this deck. I guess you just play up
the Beanstalk. Yeah.
Sure, why not?
Now, this deck certainly needs to get that fourth Up the Beanstalk in there, because Up the Beanstalk is still one of the power outliers that'll certainly exist in,
of course,
Premier as well.
Yeah. Let me. Hey, if you want to,
there it is.
Yeah, there you go. Get in there.
Still though, like the deck is sweet. Looking at it as like, what if we played? I think like if you played,
what if we threw 80 cards into an Enchantress deck?
If you play 4 Beanstalk, 4 Argothi Enchantress, it's kind of like you have 2. So in pre-modern Enchantress, they're known as anchors. It's the Enchantress Presence, the Argothian Enchantress, maybe Sylvan Library, but it's essentially like the stuff that gets your engine rolling. Those are the things that are anchors. So if you open your hand and it doesn't have an anchor in it, you'll probably need to ship that hand, because you won't actually be able to get any traction. You'll just start floating around. But like between Argothian Enchantress and Up the Beanstalk, it's like that's multiple anchors you have on 2 that just start the engine rolling.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to Blue-Black Tempo Reanimator, by another one by BMC Grail. And this is, let's switch the grid up here so we can see it. We got Kaito, since you want me to call him Kaito now. Fairy Mastermind, Grizzlebrand, this thing.
Bro, Fairy Mastermind, what a throwback. Do you remember when that had its like hot moment in the sun?
3 weeks.
Until Bowmaster came out and just obsoleted anything that even was remotely in the space.
Yep. Shriek Maw.
Dude, it is so crazy that I'm like, oh man, what a throwback. Do you remember Fairy Mastermind? That's dopey.
2022?
Don't get me wrong. Like, Fairy Mastermind is sweet. Yuta getting on a card is awesome, but like the idea that like, oh, a throwback, and yeah, it's 2022 or whatever you said.
Yeah. Cool. Bitter try. Yeah, this is this is what I would expect. And what's great about this format also, Phil, unsolved. These are not the stock builds of the meta. We don't know yet. Very few matches have been played of this format, so we're still gonna, we're still looking to see what the next the next iteration of decks is. All right, we've got Gamma Studios has hooked us up with Black Mage's Forge. There we go. Black Mage's Forge. It looks like a Ballista deck. Ballista deck. A Karn Forge deck, right?
It's the Karn Forge deck that's trying to fill in the gap of not having the One Ring to just get some free games.
Yeah.
And so the black comes from the Black Mage's Rod, which if you look over under artifacts, it's the second one down.
Okay.
So if you want to read that one, it's from the Final Fantasy set. Give it a go.
All right. Equip creature. So job selected puts a hero into play. Equip creature has +1/+0. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, deal 1 damage to each opponent, and it's a wizard. Okay.
So
you're just storming off.
It's essentially trying to fill the gap of, so One Ring is gone, and so is the precon of Glaring Fleshraker and Kozilek's command.
Sure, yep.
And so the Black Mage's Rod, which is an artifact as well, but then it essentially is like, okay, well, if you can get one of those into play or multiple of those into play, then Mystic Forge, still being able to go off, casting a bunch of stuff off the top, does let you storm out in a similar way where you can like burn the opponent out off of the pings. And so it's sort of just like taking that and going, okay, these pieces are lost between the One Ring, Glaring Fleshraker, and Kozilek's command that, like, make games relatively uninteresting. And now we are, okay, so how do we fill in the gaps? If the deck doesn't build itself, where do we go for it? And this is looking at Black Mage's Rod, which would never be a consideration in modern day.
And Uganai of the Storms shows up, another new card.
Also, we should look at the land base. So the Karn Forge decks also lose Planar Nexus.
Yeah.
At just making their making it
so you got to be on post.
So now it's back on post, but it also has a couple of cool flex slots between Vesuva and Inventor's Fair. It's back on like the old 12 post style stuff with the Vesuva and
You'll
Cloud
also note
like
that they're not playing Urza Saga here.
No Urza Saga in the format to be found, so they can't just spam out that way. It's a much more interesting thing where it doesn't feel like, oh, it's always just 2-mana slam and that's it, and then the game is over. There's like actually positional spots to have. Now, you still get Tezzeret Cruel Captain with the Grim Monolith key interaction points to make a good boatload of mana. So, like, you'll still have a lot of, like, the natural play patterns, but this is also a really cool first draft of, like, okay, what would it look like if we took one of the best decks in the format in Legacy right now, removed all of the preconification from it, where do we even go from there? And, it opens up a ton of slots. The mana base is pretty different. Black Mage's Rod is just a really sweet innovation that, like, I certainly hadn't thought of as something that would be cool to explore, and it's cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna start killing these as we go. There we go.
Something that's fun about Black Mage's Rod too is that it is something that you can, like, Mystic Forge can kill through a Null Rod, because Mystic Forge not needing to activate to cast spells off the top, and then like the wizard that the Rod makes isn't something that's affected by Null Rod.
All right, next up. We have Omnitel by DDT. Omnitel, Premier Omnitel. So we're talking mono blue, I guess green and blue here. Show and tell deck, right? With Omniscience, get to play stock up. Oro's back in the chamber. Atraxa still exists in this format. As bullshit as that card is, it was printed in standard, so it is in the format. Cunning Wish deck, yeah. I would venture to say that this is a stock list of what a Omnitel deck would look like. There's not a whole lot to say about Omnitel. You play Show and Tell, you put in Omniscience, you win the game, right?
Yeah, and Veil of Summer is certainly going to be one of the things that, like, protects these sort of combo decks from just, like, not having to care about anything else that's going on between Thoughtseize and Counter Magic. And then if you remember the old mono blue Omnitel lists from way back when that were on Dig Through Time before Dig Through Time was banned. If you just sort of substitute the stock up in that spot, then
quite good.
It's just like, yep, you go Omniscience, and then you can just go stock up and chain that into whatever it is that you're looking to find. This is not necessarily like reinventing the wheel by any means, but it's cool to see that like this would certainly be a player in. I would expect like a show and tell list to like certainly be at the top tables the way it has always been forever until faster combo decks just like sort of obsoleted it in modern day Legacy.
So much variety in the format here. We're seeing these are all different strategies we've seen so far. Since you're enjoying the show, please like and subscribe to the video. It helps the channel grow.
Support Eternal Durdles on Patreon so we can create even more content and cover events.
Patreon supporters get an ad-free RSS feed. You can even join our deck donation tier to get your very own episode.
Join the Durdle Maniacs at patreon.com/Eternal Durdles. Now back to the show. It'll be interesting. I'm excited to see like the when we get to it, like the blueback variations that aren't just the exact same thing as Demir Reanimator with a package in it.
Yeah.
You know?
Next up, we have Silver Falcon's Stoneblade. I will say, if you, because we're not on Moxfield right now, if you can do a favor to building out this format and put Premier in front of your deck list so that we can find it and make sure that it's easy enough for us to find. Putting Premier in front of your deck list will help us do that.
But we are in the process of getting Premier onto Moxfield. There are certain steps that we need to take, like building a website and building the Discord and doing all this stuff that are prerequisites to get onto Moxfield to show legitimacy of it as a format to them to put in the legwork to add it to their site. And
to that end, a big part of that is getting people into the Discord. So go to the Discord link and just join immediately. Get in there.
That is like getting onto Moxfield is not a hurdle that we'll be able to solve that relatively easily. We just got to actually put in the time and the legwork to like build out the prerequisites. But otherwise, Zac is buddies with the Moxfield guys. And
that's beyond that. Like that's just the rules of Moxfield. If you have X amount, like we're hitting those things. I just happen to know what the rules are. You know. So
like for now, just write like this says Stoneblade. Just write Premier Stoneblade or Premier whatever it is that your deck list is going forward until we're on Moxfield. But soon, like Premier will just be something that you can check off as the format that you're building for.
Yep. Now we got Teferi here.
Teferi, yes, of course, of course. Yes, right next to Yaka, my favorite.
Yase. Yeah, we've got this is the Thoughtseize Inquisition of Kozilek deck. How long has it been since you've seen an Inquisition of Kozilek?
Dude, nice, clean, classic old Esper Stoneblade list with a couple of upgrades we see in the Stoneforge package.
Coat. Yeah,
Cryptic Coat and Assimilation Aegis.
Okay,
these were all sort of cards that when they were spoiled, we thought could show up in a Stoneforge Mystic package, and then Stoneforge outside of D&T just got power crept out of the format. So to see the experimentation here with it in old, like these are all like. Certainly, like with the modern, like design upgrades that a lot of these decks would get, these first drafts like would need to be tuned in some capacity.
Yeah, of course.
To, like figure out where the actual
power see what
level
a metagame looks like. Yeah,
totally. But like, it's cool to see like people going, "Oh, what did the old Stoneblade list that I enjoyed playing look like? What are the tools that like were upgrades that I know like immediately off the bat without having like any experience against what a metagame looks like, and then just sort of applying that to a deck list like this? It's like
so much room to brew,
so much room to experiment and see what actually like pans out in plays. It's like when you play Inquisition of Kozilek in your deck, that's assuming that like Inquisition of Kozilek,
that's going to be a hit.
When I see Inquisition, I go, oh, that's a metagame call, right? Like the stuff that they care about taking is stuff that like they want to have a split between that and Thoughtseize, but they think that more often than not, Thoughtseize is going to be clipping something that Inquisition could also clip, and you want to hedge a little bit because the format's going to be wide. But like we just saw Show and Tell. Oh yeah, if it's Show and Tell and Stock Up are the critical cards in that deck that you care about, it's like Inquisition, strip either one of those. That's great, but like of course that would need to be a metagame call when you discover it. But it's cool to see Inquisition in a first draft like this.
Yeah, and our old friend Snapcaster back
coming back around.
All right. What's next? We've got Silver Falcon's Premier Bug Control. There is the QR code for it. We got right here. Looks like Liliana Last Hope is seeing play again. That's great to see.
So first and foremost, this is an Up the Beanstalk build. Up the Beanstalk was printed into a standard legal thing, and for anybody who hasn't seen the previous stuff, before the format sort of engages with what the ban list will do or not do, we're letting the format breathe and build itself out a little bit before, because like so many of the cards that you're used to seeing in Legacy are just don't exist in Premier, and so like the format is so wholly different from anything that we would be able to anticipate at all, that like making any changes otherwise would be sort of premature. But like yeah, go ahead.
Thing I say to everybody who reaches out and is like, well, I don't like this or that in the format. Let's hold for a minute. Let's get an idea of what the metagame looks like. Because if I go ahead and ban Of the Beanstalk, but Of the Beanstalk is not a card that even gets played in the format, we're just wasting our time and giving people the ick for no reason. Now, I'm not saying we're gonna ban Of the Beanstalk, even if it is good. We're gonna make sure that this is all data backed. Please read the article, because we really explain a lot of that stuff. And we also have an extra Durdles this week. If you're inclined to join our Patreon at patreon.com/eternaldurdles, where Phil and I really go into the minutia and logistics of how we want this format to look, and the philosophy of the format and stuff. And it's also a great place if you're sick of seeing ads. I post all of that content into our Patreon with 0 ads, and you'll be able to get that without having to go through the YouTube ads as well.
I also want to like point out too, like something like Up the Beanstalk, which I have advocated shouldn't exist in Legacy. But one of the avenues of Up the Beanstalk is you've never really known Up the Beanstalk without Murktide Region.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah.
And how much lifting is Murktide Region doing in the Beanstalk lists in Legacy that like otherwise make it problematic? Like if they don't have the 8/8 that draws a card as also part of their shell, like is it actually
then you have to
crazy?
Play Murderous Cut, you have to play Rakasha's Bargain, or Rakshasa's Bargain, you have to play Force of Will.
Yeah, there's certain levels where it's like the cards that we think are just like obscenely obscene, and yes, they are, of course, but like, they're design mistakes. There are acknowledged design mistakes by WotC, but without knowing the context that's around those cards, it's really hard to judge them in a brand new space. And the other thing too is that like once we start approaching the time where Premier is sort of established to some degree, and we sort of understand where the meta is, the things that like we will like, at least my inclination to do first is letting the stuff that would have been Premier legal if it wasn't banned in Legacy off the ban list first to see how that shakes things up. So
we'll see. I think we have our heads will butt on that, but that's good, because that means that there's room for discussion there.
And also the other aspect that we've talked about before is when it comes to that stuff, we are also in the space of like we'll get to try stuff and then either unban or reban something if needed.
If we unban Dreadhorde Arcanist and it's a blade on the format, it's coming back
then
out.
It goes. Yeah. And it's like and that's fine. It's not the like, oh, we can't do, like our hands are tied, on purpose the way that WotC does stuff. So that's different. So
one of the things about this format as well is that because we're a proxy friendly format, we state that like if you're a TO and you're running these tournaments, try to be proxy friendly. People, to get people interested in this format. Not everyone has the dual lands and whatnot, but because of that, because we're trying to make it like, don't go out and buy staples for this format. Like, just use what you have in Legacy. Try as a TO to not create like a situation where people are just like buying Liliana Last Hopes, hoping that they're going to be playable in this format, and then wasting money when something like that gets banned or something. We can be a little more cavalier about acting on the data, as opposed to being like, well, we're worried about people leaving the format because if we ban this one card, they really like playing it. Like we can basically establish pillars and then say, okay, with that said, these are the cards that need to be banned because data is happening. Instead of being like, well, people really like playing with Entomb and Reanimate, so we're just going to keep them around. Now, I'm not saying that either of those cards is on like a watch list. There's no watch list right now. I want this format to have completely a clean slate.
Yeah, totally.
All right. So anyhow, this is a bug control deck, right?
So this really that bug control deck is really looking like what Sultai Beanstalk might look like in a world that doesn't have Bowmaster and Murktide just shelling out everything else that otherwise would see play. Like this experimentation with like straight up Tarmogoyf again as just like a thick beater alongside Uro and
the Oculus is like doing its best Murktide impression, but it's not triggering the
yeah. So like there's some cool play here of like, okay, if you don't have the obscene power outliers that like just MH fed the format, what is a deck like it to look like? And this is a cool first draft.
Yep. All right. Next up we have another that's probably a Stoneblade deck that I've already showed. That is a bug. That's
the
I've
same
already
one.
shown
Yep.
that. All right, here we go. A Kellen with red, white D&T. Here's the QR code for that if you're interested in checking that out. All right, red, white D&T. You know, you got Aven Mind Sensor. This is a Hate Bears deck. You got Recruiter of Imperial Recruiter because Portal 3 Kingdoms is legal. If it was printed before 2010 and was legal in Legacy, it's legal in Premier. After 2010, after whenever the first Commander product, that's the real intention here. I don't know when the first Commander product came out off the top of my head.
I believe it was 2011.
Yeah, whenever that was, after 2010, if it was printed in a supplemental set, or if it was printed in a Modern Horizons set, like that sort of thing, or if it was printed in a Commander product, and it was never printed into Standard, it's not legal. So, Recruit of the Guard, legal.
Sorry, not Recruiter of the Guard, Imperial Recruiter.
Yeah,
Recruiter of the Guard is not legal.
Imperial Recruiter, not Recruiter of the Guard, not legal.
Recruiter of the Guard was printed into Modern Horizons as a way to get it into Modern, and then it was originally in Conspiracy, neither of which went through Standard. So it's something that they could easily print into Standard, given the power level that they've done before. But at this moment, as of this recording, it is not legal in Premier.
And that's probably why this deck is a red-white deck, right? Like this is a deck that needs to play Imperial Recruiter to get all these fun little this is your selection, this is your brainstorm in this
it's the going back to Aether Vial as a backbone to build decks with, but the red splash also getting the Pyroblast in the board. I mean, a lot of the decks that we've looked at so far are still going back to being blue blade mid-range style stuff, where we've seen like a bunch of the Planeswalkers still existing in the format. Kaito is showing up in a bunch of these early Premier lists. Like if you were going into an unknown metagame and you just saw like these sort of initial lists and you saw a bunch of Kaitos, like, yeah, I would want Pyroblast in my board too.
Exactly.
So, but the throwback to Mangara is like a really cool throwback here.
Yeah.
We see Athalia back in the mix because Bowmaster doesn't obsolete it. Like what a cool niche. And also like the power creep is not such that like maybe the taxing doesn't suffice in one way. So like, symmetrical effects like that are still pretty sweet. But then you have like a lot of the cool flex slots that we see in modern stuff are like current day legacy D&T still shows up here. I see Containment Priest, and you may be thinking, Containment Priest, that was a Commander product. It was actually printed into a core set. So it is legal.
Yes.
I believe it was printed into, I want to say it was M21, if I remember correctly, but they came out with it had new art or whatever, but it was printed, it was reprinted there. So like that's what we mean by like, sometimes they take Commander stuff that is popular in that format, but then they do print it into a standard legal product, and then therefore it becomes legal in Premier. So if they ever reprint stuff into Premier, like it becomes viable.
Here's a card we haven't seen in a while, Batterskull, because Cauldron Complete is not legal in this format, right? Same thing with Jitte. Jitte is a card you wouldn't see normally because in Legacy, or Sword of Fire and Ice.
Also, who needs Jitte when you have Bowmaster, right?
Exactly.
Like, it covers all the bases, but like it's these throwback these throwback weapons are cool to see. But they're still like, who knows all of the cool equipment that otherwise would get to see play if Stoneforge is actually a viable threat in Premier.
Finding the right high-end cards for Legacy, Vintage, Pre-Modern, or Old School Magic can be challenging. That's where friends 3-for-1 trading come in.
3-for-1 Trading is buying all Magic the Gathering singles and entire collections, big and small. They're one of the top trading card game traders, buying way over 1 million Magic cards a year, and they are more than happy to make you an offer on your cards. In addition to sending in your cards, you'll also have the chance to sell and trade them at MagicCon Atlanta, taking place from September 26th to 28th. Huge thanks to 3-for-1 Trading for supporting the Legacy community. Now back to the show.
All right, next up, Bant Uro. Let's switch to stacks. Here's the QR code for Bant Uro, if you're interested in that. Another one by DDT. We got some Days Undoing in here. We got Supreme Verdict. Something wild's going on here. Days Undoing for Narset. Yeah.
So this is the Narset Days Undoing package. One thing I really want to highlight, which really stuck out to me with this deck list, Sylvan Library.
Hello.
What a return to Sylvan Library. Now, Prismatic Ending is something that, like, of course, it's been Bowmaster that has checked Sylvan Library pretty holy, but Up the Beanstalk. But like, if you aren't a deck that wants to support enough 5-drops for Up the Beanstalk, like Sylvan Library being able to come back in is super sweet. And Prismatic Ending is not legal in Premier. It was in a Modern Horizons set, but it has not been
sad
printed.
for you, right?
Sad for me, but I'm happy that it means that, like, if it opens the breadth of the format a little bit more, rather than just being point and click, because if we think about it, Prismatic Ending isn't actually a fun card. It's like a necessary tool to like sort of keep up with like Tamiyo and shit of the world in Legacy, but it's not actually a good card. But it's also not an interesting card because it's just point and click. And if everybody's just pointing and clicking at each other, it's like, okay, so there's no drama, there's no tension, there's no choice.
That is one of the big points of this format, is to bring back that like that interplay that happens in Legacy that Legacy was known for, playing on the stack, playing on the board as well as on the stack, you know. And Sylvan Library is a classic example of a card where like you have to make poignant and important decisions when this card hits the board. Do I keep it in play? Do I see if my opponent starts taking damage and I start bolting his face? You know, do I include Uro to like offset that? You know, these are all interesting things that can happen in a format like Premier.
And one thing that hasn't happened yet is, even though this is a Leyline Binding Force of Will deck, it's not playing Up the Beanstalk, but because it's playing Leyline Binding, you're seeing the concessions made to the mana base. Yeah. And like that is also something like we haven't seen. Like, is there a dedicated mana denial strategy? We haven't seen a lands list yet. We haven't seen, you know, Stifle Days Wasteland of old type yet.
Exactly.
Yet. But like, it's possible because the Surveil lands being additional tap lands in Premier. Well, if the format takes a little bit more time, then like the way the games end in Legacy right now, how impactful is the tapped land? You know?
All right. Next up. Whoa. Premier Domain, inspired by an aspiring spike deck by Magic Mox. Here is that list right there. There's a nice little explainer on there too. Love that. Love primer. Here we go. Let's look at this thing. We got Cosmogoyf, Phil. Dimir Doppelganger. This deck is all over the place. I love this. This is some look at this. Serum Powder with Cosmogoyf. Get out of here.
Yeah, dude, that's some sweet stuff.
That's
also
awesome.
consult the star charts.
Yep.
That was something that like we had initially thought was going to make an impact, and then I tested with it and realized that the equivalent to number of lands you have in play is not really conducive to a format that ends games really fast. Yeah. You don't really have time to put lands into play, so it hasn't panned out for me meaningfully. But like, if this format becomes a little bit more interactive and the games go a little bit longer, and instead of games ending ostensibly on turn 2, they ostensibly end on turn 4 or 5, like that means that Consult the Star Charts, being able to grind a little bit more, might come into play, and that's really cool. And we're also seeing your old fancy of Leyline of the Guild Pack plus Leyline Binding.
Love it. Yeah, very exciting. This is a cool deck. I'm gonna give this a big look. The Domain here, I love that. We got. I don't even know what's going on here with the Nimbus Naiad. I'm interested to check this deck out. We'll go into this one more, but wow.
Cool thing about this deck too is like, even though like it's clearly had a lot of thought behind it with the little primer and like the inspiration behind it and everything, there's still only 6 cards in the sideboard, so obviously they're still thinking about
still working on it.
Like,
yeah.
When you don't know what a metagame looks like, how are you supposed to sideboard? It's really interesting. It's a really cool thought experiment.
Yep. All right. We got another one from Magic Mox. It's Premier Ideas Dredge. Here's the
what does Dredge look like in Premier? Like, you have, for the most part, a lot of what the old tools of old Dredge had, but like a Pinnacle Emissary, not legal. Oh no, it is legal. Oh my god, it is legal. That's right.
Legal.
Oh my god, I still hate it. I hate it so much, but it's so cool to see it here. This is just like pretty much old Dredge, like old classic Dredge, but this one still has like the Force of Will Days blue inspired Mufuz Van Gogh. Like that blue Dredge style strategy to be able to interact with other combo decks while still being able to maintain your initial game plan. And it's interesting. Pinnacle Emissary to, like, I guess, work with your LEDs and your Lotus Petals to start out.
Why not? Just just throw a bunch of crap at the wall and see what.
You know what's cool about that too is like the cheap warp threats do count as casting a creature. We haven't seen a Vengevine list yet but it's interesting to think about like what those types of like Hogak doesn't exist, but Vengevine and its ilk still like could come around into a sort of like crab vine
See, like an
style something or other.
Aquamoeba situation. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Like what is maybe there's space that like nobody's thought to brew with Vengevine in a hot minute because it would be laughable in today's Legacy, but maybe not in Premier. You know, like I think that there's some space to
find
innovate
out.
there.
It's definitely going to be a viable deck in Premier. I think Dredge is a very powerful deck that
I'm just thinking like you still have like the warp cards like we're seeing here, but it's like what if like you Riddlered to Dredge into another threat to like then unearth essentially your Vengevines? Like that's super cool.
Yeah. All right. We have another one from Magic Mox. It is the Premier version copy from Shinawa. This is some kind of a mono. It's a red blue.
It's a blue red Delver deck playing This Town Ain't Big Enough.
Yeah.
As a way to get additional triggers with Asmologian's Planisphere, which was another card that we thought might have...
I've seen it play. It won a couple of games against me somewhat recently in Legacy. So that is a deck that is a card that's playable in Legacy that is seeing play in Premier here.
A big blue Tarmogoyf style thing, but also cool to think that we've seen a couple of Stoneforge Mystic lists so far, but none of them have been playing Planisphere in them.
Yeah. Corey Steel Cutter, a card that I think will shine in Premier.
Zach, same thing too.
Shines in Legacy, but I don't think it shines enough in Legacy.
It also is on the backbone of a Dragon Rage Channeler. I've spoken to some people who are interested in Premier that are like, oh, how would I build Delver in the format? And knowing that they don't have the preconification of Murktide and DRC, they go, oh, wait a minute, how am I even supposed to do this when the threats don't carry me? You know, it's way more interesting. But Corey Steel Cutter, also something that you can tutor with Stoneforge Mystic.
I'm interested to see, what is this for? Esper Zoa, right? Like, what are we returning? We're just getting more value out of our Astrologian's Planisphere? I guess.
Yeah, it says return an artifact you control. And so between
just make another guy.
Astrologian and Planisphere, but also it's a way to ensure that you continuously have ways to trigger your Corey Steel Cutter.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, cool. All right, well, let's check out
the other. Like you're missing the other thing, Stormchaser's Talent.
Of course.
So the combination between Stormchaser's Talent and This Town Ain't Big Enough, we've seen as a loop, right? Because the level up on Stormchaser's Talent gets to pick up This Town, and then This Town bounces something of theirs and picks up the Stormchaser's Talent. So that those two cards in itself go forever if it's not broken up, right?
Yeah.
So we've seen that before. That's something that was, rushing in Standard for a little bit before VV came in, and we've seen it in Beanstalk style shells before. I've seen it in Cutter style shells in Legacy before.
Yeah.
The Esper Zoa, like it probably is too cute, but it is another way that you just get to free roll
VV,
up your Stormchaser's Talent.
All right. Next deck. Premier Storm. We got one for Bryant Cook, the Bryant Cooks of the channel here. Here is the QR code for Storm. It turns out Beseech the Mirror is still legal in this format. So that's it sucks.
Beseech the Mirror is, but Gaia's Will is not.
Correct. Yeah. You have Wheel of Fate instead. So you have to play a Wheel of Fate, which is like there's no echoes of Eon in this format either. So that's interesting. Of course, you're just trying to do the ad nauseum tendrils deal, right? Like
what's
not
really
a whole
cool,
lot to say about this.
You skipped over a card that we sort of saw come into Legacy for a brief hot moment before people recognized that it was power creeped out. Mind's Desire back in.
Mind's Desire, yeah. And Song of Creation is a great choice to get with the Beseech the Mirror. But yeah, it's a Storm deck, guys. They're back in Pog form. All right. We're on to some of my deck lists here. We've got our Dimir Death Shadow right here. And this is my first take at Death Shadow in the format. So we're playing Last Ride. We've got Death Shadow. Now, without Bowmasters, Phil, Last Ride's a little less good because Last Ride, like with Bowmasters, was kind of like, okay, I can just make that happen, right? We're playing Bar, we're playing Death Shadow, we're playing Delver, we're playing Street Wraith, one Tolarian Terror. Then I'm rocking Twisted Abomination and Reanimate as my like Troll of Khazad Doom situation, right? We've seen me mess around with that in Premier. pre-modern. Thoughtseized. Then we've got just the classic Brainstorm, Snuff Out, got Force of Will Days. This is a pretty stock list, right? Not a whole lot of fancy stuff going on here. I don't think there's a whole lot more to say. It's a Death Shadow deck. Death Shadow might be playable in this format.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at like the way that Dimir tempo is right now, it's like Nethergoyf and Barrowgoyf and Bowmaster and Dothy Voidwalker and just like all the stuff that is otherwise pre-conned by Modern Horizons into the deck. Or a commander product into the deck. And so it's like, okay, what would that even look like right now? The interesting thing about your list is like it is very low to the ground, only 16 lands with the Swamp Cyclers, but the Swamp Cyclers are at 2 mana, right? That's
you gotta be careful.
Nothing. Like 2 mana is still, it presumes that the games are going to go a little bit longer, but you are running like chunkier threats between the 4 Death Shadow and the 2 Lash Rides. But the cool thing about the Crew 2 on the Lash Ride, when I saw you post this deck, I was like, oh, I wonder if all of the warp creatures being able to crew the Lash Ride might also be an interesting thing to play around with, right? Like, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, there's some cool ideas that we otherwise never got to explore, never got the opportunity to, because they were just not powerful enough. But like, there's some sort of synergies that can be encountered here with decks of old. And it's cool to see like the Last Ride show up as like, Death Shadows 5 and 6.
5 and 6. I was wanting one, and then the Death Shadow just got crept right out of the format. All right. Here we are on Demir Reanimator. What's a Reanimator deck look like nowadays? Let's show that beautiful QR code there. There we go. Switch the grid around. Let's do some visual grid here. Let's do stacks. All right. So of course we're looking at Grand Unifier and Grizzlebrand as our obvious choices, right? You can play Iona, Shield of Emeria. I went with Hullbreaker Horror over Tidespout Tyrant. I think it's better, right?
The better card, yeah.
And then I just figured why not throw some Brazen Borrowers into the deck,
Brazen
right?
Borrowers as catch-alls. This is a nod to like if you weren't able to just package what is currently Demir Tempo with the 10-card Reanimator package and we're a dedicated Reanimator deck, what might that look like if you were still playing blue-black as opposed to like the turbo black-red versions? And this is a baseline example of what that might look like with the fatties that you have available. The interesting thing about these types of decks is something that doesn't work with Archon of Cruelty in the format is the pivot to get around Karakas is the Hullbreaker Horror.
Yep.
And Hullbreaker Horror is a lot worse than an Archon of Cruelty, which, just has a bunch of value, where Hullbreaker Horror is good, but it requires additional things before it can actually get any value for you. But it is blue, so it is pitchable. You have the part show and tell package in the main as well. All of the threats, or not all of the threats, the Grizzlebrand and the Iona are not, but like between Atraxa and Hullbreaker Horror, they're also blue for Force of Will as well. Force of Negation is not in the format, so there isn't additional pitch blue cards like that outside of like...
That's the nod to the show and tell package, is that there's a little bit less... There's also not any Flusterstorm. So I think you can get away with being like, I'm going to main deck the spell plan here, right?
Yeah.
Over the like tempo creature plan. That I think that this is the stronger version of the Reanimator deck, because trying to go into the tempo plan, I think, was a nod to like, people can beat me on the fair axis. Here, you're just like, I'm just going to be as unfair as possible.
Yeah, and there's also like some of the cards that otherwise have never gotten to see play anymore that might start to show up as people start to be like, oh, I need answers to this, I need answers to this, as the metagame sort of shakes out a little bit. Mystical Dispute was a card that was around for a hot moment, but hasn't been around for a long time. We've seen some amount of Spell Pierce show up, but like, the sort of like rather than just being able to free roll like between Force of Will and Force of Negation and like the there's like the harder catch-alls, like having to pick and choose beyond Force of Will, like what is the kind of counter magic that we actually want for the tools necessary, and then like, do I play around Pierce or do I play around Mystical Dispute? Do I play around Minor Misstep or do I play around Spell Snare? Like maybe those cards, maybe the counter magic that costs mana that otherwise hasn't gotten the that has been pushed out of the format functionally, it gets to come back into Premier, but what does that actually look like until the metagame shakes out? We don't know what kind of counter magic we need. So as the format continues to evolve, I expect to see a little bit more of the incidental, like trying to pick and choose the correct battle counter magic. Similar to how Inquisition, what we were talking about Inquisition, and how it's better as a metagame call when you know what you're trying to pick apart with it. Similar to that, the counter magic that costs mana. One thing we haven't seen yet, and to be seen, is does something like Counterspell, is hard actual factual Counterspell still viable in this sort of thing, even in the flex slots? We don't know. It really, again, comes to what does the format look like.
There was a point where I was playing like a one Counterspell in Rug Delver for a while.
Yeah,
you know,
and that also can be part of a suite, right? Like if it's like you're playing some amount of counter magic and then you just have one hard Counterspell as the catch-all. If that fits with whatever the metagame currently looks like. We saw a bunch of 3-drops, like Sorcerer Speed 3-drops between the Planeswalkers and when people are going back to like Cloud Post, not necessarily always having 4 mana on turn 2. Like perhaps you actually do get to operate on 2 mana counter magic, and that might be interesting.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the next one here. We've got Premier Infect.
Take it away, Zach. This is all yours.
Durdles. You know, and I'm sure I know Fenris Cloud jumped into the Discord, so I'm sure he has a much better idea of what this should look like. But I did play pre 2019, so I think I have some eyes here. Let's flip this deck over to Visual Stacks here. Of course, we're playing our 12 creature suite that we normally play. We've got 1 Ponder. I'm rocking Become Immense.
4 Ponder, my guy. 4 Ponder.
Sorry, 4 Ponder. 1 Sorcery. It is Ponder. We've got Become Immense, Berserk. You know, I'm rocking a crop rotation package. I could see people doing something else. Vines of Vastwood's back because we've lost in Biggin. I'm playing some Spell Pierces as well. And Sylvan Library. The deck is pretty stock from that era. There's not a lot to change, in truth. I don't think we've gotten any super new tools that really change much. That's kind of where I am. You've got a little bit of a land package in the sideboard as well. There could easily throw a Caracas into the sideboard to solve the problems that has to deal with. There's notably no Legolas's Quick Reflexes and no Embiggen in this deck. So I think those are the 2 big changes.
Also, the post-board pivot, there's been, you know, sometimes historically, like old Infect lists had True Name Nemesis as the which is not legal in the format, but Tifa, which is the landfall like way to get big that also works with your pump effects, is legal in Final Fantasy. Even though it's Universes Beyond is legal in Premier as long as it went through Standard. And so Tifa, working with your crop rotation split package that you got going on here, is also potentially a room to explore. If you wanted a way to pivot post-board, that still works with your Invigorate and such.
Good call. And I'm sure Sam came up with that plan himself without any of us thinking about it. He was big on that. So we've got Premier, Temur, Delver.
Premier Temur. So this is Temur Delver.
Yep.
Looking at Temur Delver, what it looks like with Tarmogoyf back in the list.
Bro, we've got Nimble Mongoose.
I'm going to let you take this one anyway, Zach. I'm going to shut
my mouth. The
goose
is loose, my friends. Let's switch this printing because that is horrendous to look at. So Nimble Mongoose in here. Delver Secrets is back. Questing Druid, I think, is a fine card to just include in the deck. You always kind of wanted like a draw 2 in this deck.
Yeah, there used to be old versions that I remember played a main deck Sylvan Library, and putting Questing Druid in that spot instead because it also beats down is a totally reasonable.
I like to play a main deck Life and Loam in one of the flex slots and just be that and just be that guy, you know, with the Wastelands. I'm rocking Vapor Snag, a Spell Pierce, a Life and Loam, and 1 Questing Druid as my flex slots in the deck.
I see 3 Questing Druids in here.
So one flex. So you get 4 flex slots.
Is a 3rd Questing Druid. Gotcha.
Generally, there are 4 flex slots in the deck. The two other cards can either be like 2 creatures or 2 Spell Pierces occasionally, but generally you run to a point where you have like 4 flex slots in the deck. So I think you could flex out one of these Questing Druids, the Life from Loam, and the Spell Pierce and the Vapor Snag for like other cards.
Zach, I'm already looking. We saw somebody posted Enchantress, and my boy Zach is already metagaming. Look at this sideboard. Back to nature in the sideboard already, my guy. No, that's
look, that's a nod to I forget his name now. Adam Penn at my old metagame at 20-side store, man. That guy would roll in with Enchantress every week. I had to have it.
Dude, hey, if I were building, like, going into, like, a big Premier event and nobody really knew what the metagame was, I, too, would bring my, like, mass enchantment hate because I would assume that the Beanstalk is absolutely one of the top decks.
Yeah. All
Even
right.
if we don't know if it is or not, like I would presume that it is.
Yep. Here's a Premier Sneak and Show. There we go. Premier Sneak and Show. If you want to see a Sneak and Show deck, we've already seen a Omni Show deck, so why not see a Sneak and Show deck? We're still rocking Atraxa. We've got Emrakul, some Spirit Guides. Of course, we're rocking Show and Tell. Of course, we're rocking Sneak Attack. I mean, this is a stock.
You know, you want to know this? Something that I'd be interested in discovering is all of these big fatty decks that we've been looking at, whether it's our like brews that you've done or brews that people have submitted, they're still on Atraxa. I wonder how valuable it being blue and pitchable to force is versus like Atraxa for the most part has been like the nod over Grizzlebrand. The color matters, right? Like being blue to pitch is
drawing cards mattered then too.
But drawing cards in a Bowmaster world was also a reason where it's like, well, if Atraxa and Grizzlebrand are comparable, then we might as well just not get blown out by one of the creatures that are like compelled to be at the top of the metagame at all times. So
you might
like
be right. It might be
or anything like
nod
that.
to or even like split it, 3-3 and 2.
Well, something else that we've seen though is people have been teching some main deck Narsets. Like Narset is something that has come around, and if Narset is something that is just generally part of the metagame, even if only in light numbers, it's possible that Atraxa is still the better option. Who knows? That's something to be discovered. But
Vigilance helps too. Vigilance is huge because sometimes you can get people, right?
It might just be that Atraxa is just the better slot because of all the incidental tack-ons that it has for what it avoids, but while also being blue. Something that we haven't seen yet, though, is a natural order build. Yeah, Atraxa is also something that you can get off a natural order.
Sure is.
And we haven't seen any elves come back in the foray yet. Like that's something else that is also probably viable in Premier because without Bowmaster, like it's possible that your elves and Glimpse of Nature just get to come back into the foray.
All right, next up, Turbo Dredge. Turbo Dredge, created by us. Let's see what Turbo Dredge looks like. We got that Flare the Hate Bound, right?
Yeah, old classic.
Yeah. We're doing Ox and Stinkweed Imp and all the normal stuff, the Breakthrough Plan, the Otherworldly Gaze, right? Nothing that we haven't seen before. Anger in the Yard. This is the fast version of the deck. The one where you just want to like get a turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 kill, right?
You're trying to LED Faithless Looting and go off.
Yep. Not a lot to say about that. We've already talked about Dredge. It could be a deck. We got Yorion Beanstalk right here. Got that QR code for the Yorion Beanstalk deck, right? Let's switch it over into the stacks here. I don't really know how to build this deck specifically. I just kind of went with my gut on this. This was early days messing around with this. I tried the Gurmag Nightwatch to like trigger the Beanstalk since I needed more creatures. Elish Norn to get even more triggers. Hooting Mandrills is back. Quantum Riddler, of course. Jace, Teferi. We got Life from Loam, Ponder, Terminus. Just trying to be like the most control-y guy. And of course, Rakshasa's Bargain. We've already seen a deck like this, so I don't want to spend too much time talking about it. This is just another flavor of deck, but we're rocking Yorion as well. All right. Let's talk about Moon Stompy, a deck that I despise. New Gemina has graced us with a deck that can start the format early on, hating my Rug Delver deck right out of the format. So we've got it's a Karn deck, right? Like Karn, Simian Spirit Guide, dual face modal lands exist but don't take over the format as far as Oops All Spells is concerned.
The notable exception to this deck list is Goblin Bombardiers is not legal in this format. Yes. That is a commander card.
You got to play the War Boss.
The War Boss and the Rabble Master. The old goblins before Bombardiers pushed them out. Back in. So we have an aggressive goblin package there alongside Bone Crusher Giant. And then the 4X Chalice
Crusher Giant. Yeah.
4X Chalice of the Void in this deck, again, pretty potent. We haven't necessarily seen what the best kind of answers to Chalice of the Void are in this format just yet.
Yeah. No prismatic ending, so you have to
it's a lot harder to figure out what the answers are to a meta game that is wholly new and underexplored. So it's like, what are even the tools that you're supposed to bring? You know, like post board, it's like wear tear is like a nice catch-all, but like, is it the actual best version of something like that? Like you brought back to nature for enchantments, but then you're like, okay, well, I want that against Blood Moon, but then if I get Chalice of the Void, like, do I want something that can catch all of it? You know, like,
do I need to play in
like,
Serenity? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, is it worth splashing for like alternative things that can catch a bunch of other stuff to consolidate slots? Like, that is stuff to be explored.
All right. On to the next one. We got another one by us. It's Premier Punishing Jund. Punishing Jund. Remember Abrupt Decay? It's back in Pog form. I'm going to keep making that joke. We got Liliana the Veil, Chandra Torts of Defiance, Scavenging Ooze, Tarmogoyf, and Dark Confidant. We've got Him Torak, Thoughtseize. This deck could even include what's called Bloodbraid Elf if it wanted to. We've got Punishing Fire, Bolt, Colgan's Command.
This is also like here you have Scavenging Ooze. There is I mean, what people have been playing recently is Keen-Eyed Curator. That is a premier legal card.
Totally.
But again, something to consider is like, is the double green on the initial thing in a non-Green Sun Zenith deck actually the correct way to go when you're playing, you know, a bunch of Wastelands and, you know,
I would say no. I would say no myself. Yeah, especially if you want to get Liliana the Veil off. Yeah, there's a lot here.
The other thing that like might be valuable as to like why Scavenging Ooze might be a pick in this slot is the life gain isn't nothing when you're playing a grindy shell like this.
Sure.
Like you might want that sort of.
Yeah, you might need it for your Dark Confidant, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dark Confidant, another card that is obsoleted by Bowmaster that is possibly powerful.
And just got reprinted, guys. It's only $5. Remember when this was a $60 card?
I remember when it was an $80 card, my dude.
Guys, Tarmogoyf, it's only $5. Remember when this was a $100 card? Anyhow, Punishing Jund. You know it, you love it. Next up, Premier Merfolk. Premier Merfolk. So obviously we're losing True Nemesis with this deck, but we recently gained Vidalian Hex Catcher. So we've got yet another Lord. So we can rock like just Lords.deck, right? You got the Lord of Atlantis, you got the Master Pro Trident and Hex Catcher, and then you just play Curse Catcher and Phantasmal Image and Silvergill Adept, and this is a stock Merfolk list from back in the day.
And despite the best efforts, Cavern of Souls unfortunately is still in this format.
Yes, Cavern of Souls is still in the format.
Great in this deck.
Yeah,
as huge
because then you can get your Curse Catchers into play through the Chalice, right?
Yep.
Or if you want Chalice on too, you can get your, you've got the Aether Vial and the Souls to like just get your guys through and be like, I'm shutting you off on 2 now. I have enough mana to do that,
And nothing makes you feel more alive than when you have a Silvergill Adept and then you play Phantasmal Image, copying Silvergill Adept, and then you Echoing Truth target your Silvergill Adept and just keep drawing cards that way. It feels delightful.
Yeah, as long as you don't target the Phantasmal.
Don't target the Phantasmal Image. No. Target the original Silvergill.
Don't try and put your Jete on the Phantasmal Image. That is a thing I have learned about.
No go.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, Merfolk. It's back in Pog form. Blue-Red Cutter. We have seen something similar to this deck. Let's see what this one looks like real fast.
Yeah, so
this is from Neo Yasu.
So we're seeing Delver just like come back into a bunch of different deck lists, which is interesting. We're seeing the Storm Chaser's talent. This talent ain't big enough package.
Delver's back in Pog form.
Wow.
Sorry, everyone. I'm sorry. Yeah, we got this town. We've got this is Storm Chaser talent. This is very similar to the previous list.
Yeah, this is combining Storm Chaser talent with Quarry Steel Cutter and this town as like the package to like loop go forever. That's a more or less a standard precon that's like coming into this package with alongside the blue suite. But this might be where like if you wanted to play your blue-red Delver deck, like it's possible that like this is sort of like the most aggressive shell you can create because you have.
And this one's only playing 4 creatures. Is wild. Like you're gonna flip your Delver a lot.
Between Storm Chaser talent and Quarry Steel Cutter, you have a lot of threats.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this deck is playing 25 instants and sorceries. So it's still going to be under a coin flip to flip your Delvers. But if you wanted to change that, like right now there's the tension between Mishra's Bauble, like Quarry Steel Cutter wanting Mishra's Bauble, but Delver wanting more instant sorceries. So there's a little bit of tension there. But that's sort of the cool thing to figure out, right?
Yeah. All right. Next up, we've got Breakfast. All right. Breakfast is right here. Here's that QR code for Breakfast. This is a breakfast deck.
Zach, what could Breakfast look like without Nadu and Urza Saga?
I'm afraid to find out. Honestly, I wouldn't play it. No, but Stoneforge Mystic is the answer, right? You get to do Stoneforge things. You get Cryptic Coat. You get Aether Vial. You get to play Aether Vial again in the deck. You get the Shuko there. And you're doing the same thing you've been doing for a while, which is get Thoughtless Oracle into play and win the game that way. There's not a lot to be said about this deck. You don't really have to innovate a ton here. It's just that the deck is a little less consistent because you don't get the C plan of I'm going to play my Urza Saga package.
Yeah, so the free wins of Urza Saga are gone. The natural, just like bury the opponent either way with
Nadu, obviously, yeah.
Which I think is actually makes it so that like the dynamic of this deck is going to be a lot more fun to play with and against. But like the fact that like the core of the shell is still intact even without the clear power outlier mistakes, it means that like if you're a breakfast player in Legacy and like want to like endeavor into Premier, like there is already
you probably have those cards, yeah.
There's already more or less the backbone of the deck for you that is certainly competitively viable because the turn 1, turn 2 kill is still here. You still have Dread Return and Thassa's Oracle, so like that package is all still there. Like the fastest part of Cephalid Breakfast is still intact.
Yep. All right, on the next one, we've got Yorion Enchantress by Dula. There's another Beanstalk deck. There we go. I'm gonna put that up for just a little bit longer. There we go. We got it for just a little bit longer so you can see it. And this is
I think we looked at this one, all right. This is the 3 up the
sure
Beanstalk
have.
list. Yeah.
Dula's Enchantress Helm.
Yeah, this was the different one. Yep.
There we go. Show that up. And there we go. Now we're gonna go to the stacks here. Yeah, I mean, you got Destiny Spinner and our Growthian Enchantress. This is the stock like back in the day. You get this version of the deck didn't exist when Destiny Spinner came around. I think that we had already moved past this. Actually, no, because this is from the first Theros, right? So I think this is the version of the deck that existed as the deck sort of left the metagame for other decks. Now, Dula has been hardcore on Enchantress for his entire life. I think he was born with a Argothian Enchantress in his hand. True believer, like you are with Miracles. So this is a format just built for people who are looking to see if their decks from 2019 and before are viable. And this is a classic example of a deck that might just be viable in this format that was back in the day and now could be again. Moving on to the final deck is another Enchantress deck from Dula. Dula's out here brewing. And we've got this is a more
This is a blue Enchantress deck. This is one that's playing like Omen of the Sea and back to basics as ways to like
Shark Typhoon,
still trigger your Argothian Enchantress, and be better against some combo decks. But still, at its heart, it wants to be anchored by Argothian Enchantress and the like ways to draw cards. But like between Abundant Growth and Ground Seal and all that stuff, like as ways to just still trigger the Enchantress while otherwise controlling the board. But then you'll see like the big suite of blue enchantments. I think the cool stuff here is like Mystic Remora in the main is super cool, stuff like that. We see a Shark Typhoon in the main, which is also really cool once you get to the top end off of your Sarah Sanctum. But then Unable to Scream is a cool little innovation as removal in blue, which just turns a creature into an O2. Very sweet and loses all abilities. Very cool. And then like back to basics to lock some decks out while you just get to pop off with one of your anchors. And then Uro is just like another value threat to,
just gain a little life. Do a little dance.
Do a little dance.
Yep. Well, that's what we have so far, right? For Premier. There's several more coming, and like I said, get into the Discord, post in the deck list part of the Discord so that we can continue seeing what the metagame is going to look like for this format. We're gonna do a league on Moto soon. I need to like figure out how that's going to be set up and everything, but then we'll be able to get some data see what things look like, so that we can begin discussing what the metagame looks like and make moves from there. But the first step to getting this format to become more real is to create a community, and that community depends on people like you getting into the Discord, talking about the format, telling your friends about it, of course, telling your friends that this is a format that is a spiritual successor, let's say, to pre-modern, if you're interested in that sort of community.
And anyone who is like sort of already brewing in the space and is like thinking through their ideas, like we saw one of those deck lists had like a little mini primer up top. Regardless of length,
get in there.
Hold on one second. Regardless of length, if you're interested in writing about a brew or something in Premiere, like send it my way. Write it in a Google Doc and send it my way, and I'll put it on EternalDurdles.com. I would love to get more Premiere content on there to like really, that way we can send links to for primers or ideas or things like that about the format to help expand the community a little bit more. I'm happy to, like, we hub a bunch of all of legacy and vintage and pre-modern and all the other stuff on there as well. But I would love to start getting Premiere content on there. So if this has sort of captured your imagination and you want to like get your ideas down on paper, like write it down and don't worry about being a good writer. Like I will help clean up your ideas after the fact. Like all you got to do is get your ideas down and then throw them my way and I'll take care of the rest. I think it'll be a nice way to help get ideas for a new unexplored format out there, and then also might even help you flesh out your own ideas by getting it down on paper like we talked about earlier in the episode. So throw it my way and I'll happily publish you.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button.
You can also support us on patreon.com/EternalDurdles, which now offers the new deck donation tier. I'll play literally whatever you want.
So brew your spiciest or stock us up with a stock list.
I'll literally play whatever you want.
Thanks for watching.